Good evening from Washington. I'm Doug Blair, in for Larry O'Connor on vacation. And as we've been talking about this entire week so far, and much of last week, the Biden administration seems to be hell-bent on destroying your life. It seems like they want to ruin the economy, they want to ruin the border, but most importantly, they want to ruin your kids' education. Well, if anything, the movement on the conservative right to stop the Biden administration is forceful, and it seems to be very effective. This is coming from a new campaign, the Education Fairness for All campaign, led by Steve Moore. He's the founder of Club for Growth, as well as the founder of the Committee to Unleash Prosperity. Steve, thank you so much for joining the show today.
Doug, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So talk to me a little bit about this Education Fairness for All campaign. I think that education is such an important topic. So what are you guys doing to make sure that it is fair for all?
So there's a burgeoning education movement going on around the country this year in the states, right? In the state capitals, where there have been, I believe, 11 or 12 states already this year, including most recently Ohio, but including Iowa, Florida, states like Utah, that have basically allowed students to opt out of the public schools and gives them the money to go to a Catholic school or a Jewish school or a Montessori school or art school or history school, or something that is really tailored more to the students' needs. And this is most important in inner cities because our public schools, especially in cities like Chicago and cities like Philadelphia and cities like Detroit, are completely failing our students. Most of the kids can barely read the diplomas when they graduate. And so I believe that this is the number one civil liberties and civil rights issue of our time. If we want to help Black Americans and low-income Hispanic Americans, we should allow them and their parents to find schools that work. And so that is the battle that's going on. It's a battle between parents and families and versus teachers unions who don't want to let parents send their kids to better schools. And unfortunately, too many Democratic politicians around the country, including, you mentioned Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and then many Democratic governors, are not allowing these kids, mostly minorities, to go to better schools.
Now, Steve, I've been told on good authority by the Democrats that it's the Republican Party that's terrible for minorities, that they just want to, I believe it was the president who said back when he was not the president that we just wanted to put y'all back in chains. What is going on here? Are you saying that we are actually promoting a better life for minorities here?
Well, the minorities are the ones who are the biggest beneficiaries of school choice. There's no question about it. If people could actually go into some of the inner city schools in Washington, D.C. or Chicago or Milwaukee or Newark, and they saw the deplorable conditions of those schools, the fact that it's mayhem, there's no learning going on, and then you've got these parents who want to send their kids to better schools. And just as an example, we're saying, look, for half the amount of money that we spend on the public schools, the Catholic schools do a better job of teaching the kids. I know that firsthand. My two stepsons are both doing really well in a Catholic school because they have discipline, they have a core curriculum, and they have high expectations for the kids. And so it's mostly minorities who would benefit from this. And isn't it ironic that Democratic politicians, including most recently Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, who campaigned for governor supporting school choice, he said he would do it, and he had a bill that was presented to him on his desk, and he vetoed the bill that would have given something like 10,000 low-income minority students an opportunity to go to better schools. And the reason he did it is because he was kowtowing to the teachers union. So they're putting the unions over the benefit, over the interests of the kids.
Absolutely. And as somebody who went through Catholic school, I can attest to the value and the quality education that I received there. Steve.
Well, look, you see these knuckles. I mean, I've still got those nuns whacking me with the ruler.
And it worked. It worked. Now, Steve, one of the things that I think is so fascinating here, too, is that while we are also talking about the educational outcomes of these poor public schools, there's also the tax burden. It's far more expensive to have this type of process go through than it is to just say you get to use the money in the way that you like a lot of school choice advocates are pushing here. How do we make that case better to the American people that, like, look, it's not just your kid's going to learn more, you're going to save money?
Yeah, well, I mean, it is. We spend, several $1 trillion on our school systems, and we're not getting a return on it. And Look, I think a lot of Americans would be willing to pay more for the schools if they actually thought they were doing a good job. But let's not forget, the villains here are the teachers' unions. They are the ones who shut down our schools during COVID. And they denied our kids sometimes 18 months of schooling. You know, for a 6 or 7 or 8-year-old to lose a year and a half of schooling has permanent damage to their, future earnings potential. So the unions shut down the public schools, but now they won't let the kids go to the private schools. And look, every kid is different. I mentioned I have 2 stepsons. I have 3 sons of my own, so 5 kids. Every one of them is different. Everyone has different aptitudes, different interests. And so we shouldn't just warehouse kids in schools. We should find the best school available for every single child. And isn't it ironic that just a week and a half ago or so, the Supreme Court ruled against racial preferences for colleges, which I think was the right thing to do, and the left went crazy about that. But what we're saying is let's let every young person have a great education. By the way, it doesn't matter what the college admissions policies are if the kids can't even read and write when they graduate high school. That's the real tragedy in America. It's a crisis in the classroom, and we've got so many great governors that are moving forward with school choice. But some of the villains are Governor Cooper of North Carolina, and the governor of Pennsylvania, who basically just, double crossed the parents and said, no, I'm not going to allow you to do this, even though it was only 1/30th of the state budget.
Absolutely. Well, fingers crossed that we're able to make some movement on that front, that the voters of Pennsylvania remember this come election season, what Josh Shapiro promised and what he delivered. Steve, if I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about this term that seems to be flying around quite a bit, which is Bidenomics, something that I could never imagine ever coining in the back room and thinking this is a good idea because the economy is in shambles. What is he thinking?
Well, Bidenomics is a word that I've used and many economists have used for the last 2.5 years as a term of derision.
Right.
I mean, you've got a president who's trying to put lipstick on a pig and saying this is a well-performing economy when 70% of Americans think we're headed the wrong direction. The average American has lost $4,000 in purchasing power. That is, they've gotten poorer since Biden has been in office. We've seen, the problems with respect to the inflation rate now. It's up. Prices are up 17% since Joe Biden came into office, and people can't keep up. And so to call this a well-functioning economy when we've added $6 trillion to our national debt in just 2.5 years is a joke.
All right, absolutely. I completely agree. I think it's crazy, too, that we're still trusting the Biden administration to do the right thing when, as we've just been talking about this entire time, they want to take away school choice. They want to raise your taxes. They want to make your paycheck go less far because you're spending too much money. Final question here, Steve, in the last 30 seconds here. Do you think that Biden is going to be a good candidate in 2024? It's coming up. What are your thoughts on his presidency?
Well, as a Republican and somebody who worked for Trump, and by the way, the economy should be booming if we just had kept with Trump policies. When I say my prayers at night, I pray that Joe Biden is the Democratic nominee because I think he's by far the easiest to beat. He's the Jimmy Carter of this era.
Well, fingers crossed he goes the same way as Jimmy Carter and we see a rout. That is Steve Moore, founder of Club for Growth, founder of the Committee to Unleash Prosperity. Check out the Education Fairness for All campaign. Steve, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
All right. Keep it here on O'Connor Tonight. We got more for you here on Salem News Channel.